Welcome to Guarantee News. I'm your host, Garrett. As usual, if you're watching this for a second, a minute, the entire video, no matter what, I appreciate you for watching. You could be watching anything in the world and you're watching me on Guarantee News, and I think you're making the right decision, so I appreciate that. Please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel, GS Studios, GSTEWDIOS. And yeah, like, subscribe, and please comment on this video as well. Tell me where you agree with me. Tell me where you disagree with me. Tell me where you agree with, oh, I agree with most of this, but I just think you went wrong here. Tell me why. But also try to stay respectful in the comments. You know, as someone that can tend to be disrespectful and not even realize that they're doing it sometimes. I know it happens, but let's try to stay respectful on my YouTube page. But I can't make you guys. So yeah, speak freely in the comments, hopefully respectfully. Now, for this episode today, it's a Monday when I'm recording this. It's a Monday when I'm going to be putting this out, March 31st. So for today's episode, I'm going to just be taking a look at the weekend news and saying how basically those headlines and that news is going to make its way into this week of news. And I'm not going to do a lot of hardcore analysis and giving opinions. I'm just going to do a quick rundown because this week, when these stories I'm about to tell you become big stories in the news, that's when the analysis is going to happen. That's when you're going to find out more, and that's where I'm going to get into both sides of my opinion like we do on Guarantee News. But today we're going to do mostly around a couple of interviews, exclusive interviews that the President Trump had with NBC News on Saturday evening and Sunday morning. And in these interviews, he talked about the tariffs on cars, and the April 2nd Independence Tariffs Day that's going to be happening this week. That's going to be a big story. We're going to talk about the fallout from signalgate and if that's going to be continued to talk about or just go in to the shadows. We'll talk about that. Taking control of Greenland, which Trump is serious about. A third term in presidency, yeah, you heard me right, which Trump is serious about. And the Russia-Ukraine ceasefire with some update on that. Every other week, Trump said he's either mad at Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, or Putin, the Russian president. So we're going to talk about who he's mad at now. And then I'm just going to give, again, a quick update on each one. And then I'll look at what I think is going to happen. And in the comments, you tell me if you're watching this on Monday and Tuesday where it's still early in the week, if you think I'm right about my predictions or what you think is going to happen from these stories this week. So we're going to get straight to that. And for the first one, we're going to do the car tariffs April 3rd that Trump is starting. And let's see. So basically, let's get to the main article. Most of this is going to be, of what we're doing today, is going to be coming from this article that basically goes through the interview and everything that he was saying. So we're going to start off with the tariffs. So last week, Trump basically said, and let's go to something that's more entertaining to watch while you're looking at this. We'll just put it on this. So basically last Wednesday, Trump said he's going to do a 25% tariff on all foreign-made cars, and it's going to start on April 3rd, which would be this week on Wednesday. So that's going to start on April 3rd. And that announcement, let me see if I can get the calendar up. I always miss where my calendar is. Hold on. Bear with me because I want to find this. Yeah, because April 4th. So April 3rd, April 2nd is going to be the Tariff Independence Day. April 3rd is when this 25% tariff on cars start. And basically what's going to do is, I haven't talked about tariffs a lot on this show, and I know I need to. There's going to be a more specific video on that. But this 25% tariff is on all foreign-made cars that are coming into the country. And it's also going to affect cars that parts of American-made cars. So if the car is made in America, but some of its parts are made out of the country, or we're getting it out of the country, there's going to be a 25% tariff on those parts as well. And Trump also says that this is going to be a permanent tariff. And on that, though, and when I say permanent tariffs, some of these tariffs he's going back and forth as a negotiating tactic, which we'll get to. He's saying that these specific tariffs are not going to go anywhere and they're permanent. You can't believe anything he says on that, because he'll go back and forth, and even in a quote that I'll say you, he pretty much contradicts himself and says these tariffs could go away depending on what the other countries are willing to give me. Now, first, before we get into these 25% tariffs, I want to talk about the ones that he's been talking about and what's going to be imported this week for real. And that's that April 2nd Tariff Independence Day is what he's calling it. He's calling it Independence Day because he's saying that starting on this day when he puts all these tariffs on just a whole bunch of shit, consumer goods. You've seen it. It could be anything from alcohol, avocados from Canada, Mexico, to steel, metal. April 2nd, he's putting tariffs on anything, and he's saying it's going to be our Independence Day because because America is basically going to stop getting fleeced from other countries. And that's going to be a big headline this week, and we're going to talk about that. I want to show just a couple videos of him talking about it because I think it will give you an idea of it, what at least he's saying his opinion is. So let's watch these really quickly.
On April 2nd, I call it the liberation of America. We've been the fat, dumb, foolish country that allowed everybody to rip us off, including our friends. Look at NATO. Until I got involved in NATO, we were paying for the whole thing practically.
There's a lot of talk about a possibility of a recession, and CNBC had a report from the Fed saying they can't rule it out. It could actually happen. What can you say to Americans tonight who are concerned about the possibility of a recession, given the fact that you're trying to reorient the economy to a manufacturing economy again?
I think if I didn't get elected, our country would be finished to start off with. And I think now that I did get elected, I think we're going to have the strongest economy in the history of the world. And I had that economy in 4 years with all the harassment, with all the crazy people after me, with all of the things that went on, even with COVID. I had the strongest economy in the history of our country. I had a stock market that went up 88% on April 2nd.
So basically, I think something important with this video is she asked, are we going to be going into a recession? One of the people who said that, and he completely ignored that question. He just said, I'm going to be the best president. We've had the best 100 days. I'm just great, which is Trump, what he always does. He never does anything wrong. But he completely answered that, went past that question. And I think that's important because that's one of the main things with these tariffs. Let me get to, before I give a little bit of my opinion, let me get to a specific quote that he says here that I think really just says what he's trying to do with these tariffs. Let me see. If prices don't go up, yeah, it's here. So, all right, this is a quote. If prices don't go up, it doesn't deter imports, and therefore there's no reason to set up shop in the U.S., Grabo explained. Part of the logic is premised on prices going up. Otherwise, they are not going to accomplish their goal. And let's see. Economists say, and ultimately the Trump administration's goal is to increase prices on imports to the point where it's economically favorable for companies to relocate their manufacturing in the U.S., right? So basically, Trump is using these tariffs as a negotiating tactic to do what he says is going to bring more money to the country, more jobs to the country, because major companies are going to be moving their businesses to America. So it's going to make the economy better. People are going to have American-made things. It's going to give jobs to people. But the only thing, or one of the main things about that, is that the timing of all of this in the sticker price of things, and how long will Americans be able to last before the benefits of this show up, right? So basically what I mean by this, to be quickly, is that, okay, if you're saying that you're going to put tariffs on things to basically make countries either say you're going to make our tariffs when we get stuff and import stuff from you even cheaper, or we're just not going to work with you guys anymore and we're going to just make stuff pricier here, that's going to take months to go into in advance, because this is like a trade war that everyone's been talking about. So other people are going to tariff us. Trump is going to make bigger tariffs. Are they going to back down? Are they going to stay? Which I'll get to by the end of this. And while we're waiting for Trump to do this tariff war and have all these different debates with these different countries, and every country has their own thing of, are we going to tariff America, or are we going to just step back and listen to them? Are these other companies, auto companies, farmers, are all these people going to move to America and we're going to make America-made things? But while this is happening, is the prices of cars, the prices of groceries, the prices of gas. Groceries and gas is what Trump ran on, making it cheaper. So if those things are going to stay expensive, it's interesting to me what Trump fans are going to say and how long they're going to be able to wait before they want to see these results. Because in the end, the result is American-made goods, more jobs here, more money here. America's not getting fleeced by other countries. But if it takes a year, if it takes 2 years, how long is it going to be before you start hearing those conversations of the Trump fans not caring about what's going to happen 3 years down the line when the market's going down and everything is more expensive? So that is very interesting to me, of how long Americans will be able to last and what the conversation is going to be from Trump fans. And I want to say, I want to ask you guys watching, how long are you guys willing to wait? Or do you think this tariff situation is going to end up being better for the country? And on the road for it being better, how much do you think it's going to hurt you? I mean, that's something I'm going to dive into. I'm not going to get into it, but it's an interesting conversation. And there's a quote that I want to read from this with the article. So first off, I want to get to the point where when pressed if he told CEOs not to raise prices, as reported in the Wall Street Journal, Trump added, "No, I never said that. I couldn't care less if they raise prices because people are going to start buying American cars." He's saying he couldn't care if foreign car makers raise prices. And like we read in that other thing, they want prices to raise so that people will start making countries here. But if prices are going to start raising, it's gonna affect Americans. So it's that tit for tat of how much pain Americans are going to feel before we start feeling it. And let's see. And this is what we got into a little bit in the beginning. NBC News reported this week that foreign auto parts would also be taxed at 25%, even if the vehicles they go into are assembled domestically. So if the car is made in America, but the piece for the car is out of the foreign country, it's still going to have 25%. And if the whole car is made foreignly, it's going to have 25%. So it's kind of a big deal. This is talking about some stuff like this group that has like Canada America car made group is not going to have to react to it immediately. They're going to figure out what they're going to do with them. But there's a quote here. So Trump's tariff, there's a quote here that I really want to read too from Canada's president. So Trump's tariff announcement on last Wednesday, came just weeks before his planned April 2nd Liberation Day. The tariffs on cars starts April 3rd. Liberation Day is April 2nd, which is an announcement of all the other stuff he's going to tariff and what that looks like. Is he going to push it back? What is the announcement going to be? That's all interesting. So when tariffs on a variety of consumer goods are set to take effect, they drew swift condemnation, I got that wrong, but swift hate from international leaders like Japanese Prime Minister I'm going to say his name wrong, and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. In remarks on Thursday, Carney told reporters that tariffs were unjustified and the old relationship we had with the United States based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperation is over. Trump on Saturday maintained that he does not plan to further delay the imposition of the April 2 tariffs, and he would consider negotiating on that point only if people are willing to give us something of great value, because countries have things of great value. Otherwise, there's no room for negotiation. So what he's saying earlier in this article that it's permanent, then by the end of it, he makes a quote saying, if people have something to give us, then I could go back on it. So we're going to be definitely talking on Guarantee News on April 2nd to see, what are other countries offering? What are other countries potentially putting tariffs back on us, and what does Trump do in return to that? So that's going to definitely be a big deal. Then on April 3rd, when these car tariffs go into effect officially, it's going to be a big deal. And as time goes on, the biggest deal to me is as the prices raises, what is Fox News saying? What are Trump fans saying? So continue to watch Guaranteed News for that. That's one big headline that we're going to see this week. Now to the next thing Trump said. So signalgate, the signal thing that happened on Monday of last week, it was the biggest story. If you didn't hear about it, I'll give you a quick rundown. Basically what happened is people from our defense administration and people from our intelligence administration with the Trump administration, basically, these are the people that are supposed to watch American intelligence, get information and keep it safe, and the people who are supposed to use that information to defend our country and do its best and control our army and our troops and keep them safe, but also send them in missions and send them doing things that are in the best interest of the American people in the country, right? That's their job. Long story short, basically what they did is they had a plan to bomb Houthi militants in Yemen. It's basically a terrorist organization. And the bombing went successful, but before the bombing went successful, they were in a group chat on this app called Signal, which is basically a little bit more safer than WhatsApp. It's WhatsApp, but a little bit safer. I can use it and you can use it. These are people that are in the Defense and Intelligence Administration working for Trump. They went on this app and were texting in a group chat when they were going to bomb, how they were going to bomb, their plans, and then they added a journalist to the group. So the journalist saw all of this beforehand, and then the journalist released it after the bomb, and it caused a shit show. And all week, everybody in Trump's organization pretty much just figured out a way to lie and not take accountability. Let's see, Mike Waltz, is that his name? Let's look. Yeah, Mike Waltz, he was in the group chat. He started the group chat. He's the national security advisor. He made the group chat, and he put Jeffrey Goldberg, who is a journalist. He added Jeffrey Goldberg into this group chat where they were talking about these sensitive war information. Pete Hegseth our defense secretary, he was the one in there that a lot of people made fun of, that was saying, oh, we're going to drop the bomb here at this time. This is who's here. We're going to send a second strike package. So people were giving him shit for that. His reaction to that was to basically say the whole week, I think he was thinking no matter how many times, if you lie enough, it's going to become the truth. So he was saying we were not sharing war plans. We're not sharing war plans. Tulsi Gabbard was also in the group chat. She is, you might have heard of her, she was a Democrat turned Republican. She's the director of national intelligence. She's the director of national intelligence. She went in front of Congress over the week. Her thing was to say, I wasn't in the group chat at first. Then she was saying, I don't know, I don't recall. Every time they asked her a question, what were they talk about? Don't recall, don't want to answer. To my recollection, they didn't do this. She basically just looked like she was very incompetent and couldn't run a country. Couldn't run intelligence. She looked like a lot of the things people were saying about Kamala. That's what she looked like when she was talking to Congress this week. So that's the way she did it, was the I don't know anything, I don't remember anything. And now, since then, Trump has basically said he's not going to fire anyone for this. He has full confidence in everyone involved, and it was a simple mistake. So let's read a little bit of this. He has no plans to fire anyone following news that National Security Advisor Mike Waltz added a journalist to a Signal app group chat with senior members of the Trump administration who are discussing plans to strike Houthi militants in Yemen. I don't fire people because of fake news and because of witch hunts. Trump is known for firing people, and in his first administration, or we'll get to that, I'll wait. So, I do, the president said when asked whether he still has confidence in Waltz and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who was also in the Signal group chat. I think it's just a witch hunt and fake news, like you talk about it all the time, but it's just a witch hunt. And it shouldn't be talked about, Trump added. We had a tremendously successful strike. We struck very hard and very lethal, and nobody wants to talk about that. All they want to talk about is nonsense. It's fake news. Trump's comments come as he faced calls, including from Republicans, to fire Waltz after the Atlantic's editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, wrote on Monday that he had been added to a group chat on a private messaging app with senior administration officials. In the chat, officials appeared to discuss their plans to strike Houthi rebels, which the Trump administration has since repeatedly claimed were not classified. I have no idea what Signal is. I don't care what Signal is, Trump said on Saturday. All I can tell you is it's just a witch hunt, and it's the only thing the press wants to talk about. The last thing I'll say with this is he's not firing and standing behind his people, which could be honorable if he could admit that they were wrong, and he wasn't just doing this to keep yes men that do whatever he says. And that's the big thing with this, is it's a symptom of a bigger problem that will continue to come up in this administration, that all Trump did when he was choosing his administration were yes men that were going to listen to him instead of people that were actually qualified. And in his first administration, he was firing a lot of people because the people he were choosing in his administration had some type of care or some type of integrity to say sometimes, we're going to stand up to Trump because sometimes he's doing the wrong thing. The biggest example of that would be, Trump's first, I always forget his name, which is incredible because he was the governor of Indiana, Mike Pence. The biggest example of that was Mike Pence when January 6th happened, and Mike Pence used some of his last shred of dignity to not help Trump do January 6th. So Trump this time decided, we're not going to care about if people are qualified, we're going to just choose a lot of yes men. And in choosing those yes men, Trump is saying I have to keep them. And that's what I think is one of the big things with this, is the refusal to take any type of responsibility. Someone had to be fired, whether you want to think it's Mike Waltz for adding Jeffrey Goldberg and being the original idiot to do that. Sorry to call him an idiot. I'm trying to be nicer, to make that simple mistake, whatever you want to call it. Or if you want to say that it's Pete Hegseth for giving classified information in a group chat, on an app that anybody can get. There's a lot of different ways you can go about who should be fired, but I think it's very, very clear that someone should be fired, and Trump not taking any responsibility and the administration taking any responsibility, I think is a symptom of the fact that, yeah, it's a bunch of yes men. And when this happens again with something else that's a bigger deal, it's just going to be interesting. Would Trump ever fire someone or take accountability for the people that he hired that seem to not be qualified? Again, a person that's known for firing. So the thing with this is this going to become a story that continues, where will these people be put in federal court to see if they've broken the law, or will this just be something where Trump continues to fight the judges and it just goes under the rug and it's a different story and we have to wait until the next time these people make a mistake to see what happens? That's what's interesting with that. I'm curious as to what you guys think. Is this a story that is going to be coming up again this week, or is it going to just be floated under the rug before the next big thing happens this week that everyone forgets about? So that's interesting with this week. Then we have everything is on the table to obtain Greenland. So basically, Trump is trying to take control of Greenland for its location as a positive. It's basically for its location. It's a positive for shipping lanes because it's in the Arctic. A bunch of ice is melting there, and basically ships are able to get through for commerce, for selling things. It's good for the economy that way. He wants power forward for that. And then it has a lot of untapped natural resources like gas and minerals. And let me just show a couple of pictures of Greenland. Let me put this right here where you guys see that. Greenland. Yep, Greenland, a lot of natural resources, good for shipping. Now, I'm just going to give my opinion quickly on this. I actually don't know how I feel about this. I don't really like him trying to take control of Greenland just because it leads into a lot of things with Trump, which is our relationship with the world and other countries and how it could be hindered. No matter how much power we have, no matter how much money, how much defense, no matter how much power America has, I think the day will come where it will be good for us and important to have good relationships with a lot of countries and not bad relationships. And I think taking over countries, I think this whole tariff thing, I think with all the other things you can think about it, I think it's important to try to think about the relationship that we're going to have with other countries. And I'm curious as to what you guys think. Do you just think, who cares? Because we're powerful, because we're America, we don't have to worry about being friends with other people. We can just make them do what they want, and that would be good for us, leading by fear? Or do you think as a country it's important to try to kind of lead by what America is known for, which is being like a person that, or a country that stands up for democracy, that is the friend of countries that are friends of democracy, or a country that's going to just do whatever they want and take whatever they want? Which one do you feel safer as, and you think it's a better way to run it? I don't think taking all of our allies and trying to SHIT on them is the best way to go about it. Now, another thing that's interesting with this is Trump saying that he has absolutely had real conversations about annexing, which is basically taking over Greenland, which is currently a semi-autonomous Danish territory. That basically means that they basically have control of their country, except for Denmark runs their foreign defense, gives them like $1 billion and runs a lot of their economy with the world. So they basically control themselves, but they don't control themselves. So them taking over it is disrespectful to Greenland, but also disrespectful to Denmark. But Trump said, we will get Greenland 100%. And he added, there's a good possibility that we could do it without military force, but I don't take anything off the table. That wording's interesting to me. Good possibility that we could do it without military force. So he's saying it's possible that we could do it without military force, but we may, and we could, and I don't take anything off the table. I'm interested about what does that look like, military force taking over Greenland. So that's very interesting to me. Another thing that's interesting with me is that Russian Putin commented on this, and I want to read those comments from this other NPC article really quickly. So, hours before J.D. Vance and his wife took off from Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, Russian President Vladimir Putin said Thursday night that he had no problem with Trump's proposed land grab of the world's largest island. Trump's desire to take Greenland has long historical roots, Putin said Thursday at Russia's Arctic Forum in Murmansk, the largest city north of the Atlantic Circle. This is an issue that concerns two specific nations and has nothing to do with us. Trump has for years stated his desire to take over the territory, 2/3 of which sits above the Arctic Circle and whose melting ice hides a bonanza of rare elements, oil and natural gas. Like I was saying, the melting ice, they want the elements, natural gas, and the shipping. The Putin comments are interesting to me because everything with Putin is kind of interesting with me with the Trump dynamic. It's something that I'm looking out to. Who has more power? I'd love to be able to fly on the wall hearing them talk. And of course, I'm thinking at the very least, is that Putin kind of saying, I'm staying out of your business with you trying to take over this country that is important to everyone. I want you to stay out of my business with this taking over this country that's right next to me. And I also think it's also one of those things where he just probably doesn't care, but him saying that Putin, from what I've read about him, from what I've seen about him, it seems like he doesn't do anything on accident. So I'm curious as his importance to comment on that and say it's none of our business. If they want to do it, we're gonna let them do it. We're not gonna stop anything. Another thing interesting with this article, J.D. Vance went to Greenland with his wife. In the midst of all this happened over the weekend, and there's just something cool with this that I want to say. So let's see. Oh, this is interesting. Denmark fully controlled the island for 300 years until it became a semi-autonomous territory in 1953. Although Greenland gained home rule in 1979, Copenhagen in Denmark still controls its foreign and defense policy and contributes just under $1 billion to its economy. So it rules itself, but it doesn't rule itself. Denmark gives it money, protection, all that stuff. So it's kind of a two-country thing. And it's the size of Alaska and California combined with only 56,000 people. So it's huge, but not a lot of people. And let's see. This is basically kind of quotes from people from Greenland about how they feel about this. Anders Lorison, 41, owner of a local water taxi company, had a similar take. We have always looked at America like the nice big brother to help you out. And now it's like the big brother is bullying you, Lorison said. That's basically getting into that conversation again of, is it better for us, our country, to be a friend of democracy and get our power from helping people, or to get our power from taking power and making people just bow down to us? But this is the interesting part I want to say with that. So J.D. Vance and his wife had a trip to go to Greenland. This anger saw the U.S. delegation's visit. It was Vance, vice president, his wife, and like a couple other people going to Greenland to basically do like, hey, we're here, respect to you guys, just want to pop in, right? But the visit was vastly downscaled, albeit because, with the addition of the vice president, originally intended to encompass a visit to the capital, which is Nuuk of Greenland. So they were going to visit the capital with cultural elements such as a dog sled race, because it's in Greenland with a whole bunch of ice, a whole bunch of snow, dog sled race. It's going to be this cool thing where we're supposed to come together. It will now only last one day and be confined to U.S. Pivtic space base, which is hundreds of miles from the capital and likely any dissenting locals. So basically, I just wanted to put that out there because it's showing a sign of they were supposed to go there. Our vice president and some of the people on his team were supposed to go there and have a good time in Greenland. And now Greenland basically said, no, stay in this little American base that you guys already own, far away from our capital, because you're pissing all of our people off and we don't want to start a show. Last thing I want to say with this that I think is interesting to me is, let's see, Greenland Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nelson pushed back against Trump's plan to take over the nation. Writing Sunday on Facebook, President Trump says the United States is getting Greenland. Let me make this clear. The U.S. is not getting that. We do not belong to anyone else. We decide our own future. We must not act out of fear. We must respond with peace, dignity, and unity. And it is through these values that we must clearly, and calmly show the American president that Greenland is ours. It was like that yesterday. That's how it is today. And that's how it be in the future. When asked, so with this, yeah, we'll get to that these part. But with this, I think it's funny to me how the guy is saying, we want control of this, we're taking over this, but respectfully, calmly, nicely, we don't want to make you mad. And that's the thing with Trump, where he is powerful, he is a debater, he does have that thing where you can tell people want to respect him, but this is, right? You see, what do you think about, you see Canada's president saying our relationship is done, the prime minister, you see Greenland, you see all this other stuff. So it's like, what do you think about these things where Trump is basically just saying, I'm going to do whatever we want? And what do you think about a quote like this? Asked what message acquiring Greenland would send to Russia and the rest of the world, Trump said, I don't really think about that. I don't really care. Greenland's a very separate subject, very different. It's international peace, it's international security and strength. You have ships sailing outside of Greenland from Russia, from China, and from many other places, and we're not going to allow things to happen that are going to hurt the world or the United States. He's basically saying if it hurts the United States, it hurts the world. And he doesn't care what anybody else thinks. That America First thing that a lot of people who voted for Trump want that, but the thing with a lot of the things, the point with a lot of things in the Trump administration is it's not what he's saying he wants to do, it's how he's doing things. You want to make the country better, you want to make the country stronger, you want to make the country safer, but you're doing that but by just pooping on all of our friends, all of our allies. You want to make the economy better, but you're doing that by saying Americans are going to have to go through pain, but not telling us how long we're going to go through pain for. So it's a lot of questions about how he's doing things for me, but I wonder what Trump fans think about how their patients are. I would assume with things like Greenland, with taking over Greenland, you probably don't care and don't think it's a bad idea, but I'd ask you to think about it with the effect that it could have in the future and if we ever need these places to be our friends. Interesting to me. The next thing we're going to get into is Trump saying that he is serious about having a third term. Now, I'm going to cover this very quickly because I'm going to do a full episode kind of covering this more sometime this week. And I think while it's very scary and something that needs to be talked about now, this episode's not for that, and I just want to cover it to have you guys looking at it to see what it's going to come on this week. And I think you guys should just do some research on it. But it's just wild to hear him say that he's serious about it, and it's wild that there's actually methods where he could get it done. And even though why it's very difficult, it's possible. So we're going to read a couple of things from this. Trump will rule out seeking a third term in the White House, tells NBC there are methods for doing so. So let's look. So Trump did not rule out the possibility of seeking a third term in the White House, which is prohibited by the Constitution under the 22nd Amendment, if I could talk, saying in an exclusive interview with NBC News that there were methods for doing so and clarifying that he's not joking. A lot of people want me to do it, Trump said in a Sunday morning phone call with NBC News, referring to his allies. But I mean, I basically tell them we have a long way to go. You know, it's very early in the middle in the administration. That's what I'm talking about, where it is very early, but it's scary to think about it. It should be on everybody's mind every day for 4 years. I'm focused on the current, Trump added. It's some of the most extensive comments to date about serving a third term. When asked whether he wanted another term, he said, I like working. I'm not joking, Trump said, when asked to clarify, but I'm not. It is too early to think about it. When asked whether he had been presented with plans to allow him to seek a third term, Trump said, there are methods which you could do it. NBC News asked about a possible scenario in which Vice President J.D. Vance would run for office, and then if he wins, they would switch and pass the role to Trump. Trump responded, that's one method, but there are others too. When asked to share another method, Trump simply responded no, which if you know Trump, anytime he answers anything without a long answer or a long talk about how great he is, it's scary. A no, just a no is kind of scary. Amending the Constitution to abolish the two-term limit would be exceedingly difficult, requiring either a two-thirds state vote of Congress or two-thirds of the states, so a two-thirds vote of Congress or two-thirds of the states agreeing to call a constitutional convention to propose changes. Either route would then require ratification from 3/4 of the states. So it's a lot of things that you can do to do it, but it can happen. We're going to go into this. The reason I want to talk about this, I have a lot of friends and people older than me that are smarter than me, people that are the same age as me that I don't know if they're smarter than me, probably just as smarter than me, but just think about stuff differently than me. A lot of people saying that Trump is a dictator. He's going to try to take over the country. He's not going to leave. And I was the one saying you guys are being exaggerative. Trump is crazy. Trump is fried. Trump is scary, but try to take over America. I just don't think he's going to do that. It seems like he is very serious about doing that, and that is terrifying. I'm not going to get into it. Just wanted to put it out there. What do you guys think about this? Do you think he's serious? Do you think he can do it? And if you're a Trump fan, do you mind doing that? Do you mind the fact that basically America wouldn't be a democracy anymore? And I also asked the question is, if he's going to do 3 terms, do you think he'll ever feel done? And do you think if and when he potentially dies, do you think he'll let it go, or it will be some type of plan to keep it still in his family or some sort of thing like that? So I asked the Trump fans, is this just something that you're going to just say it's not real and put it off as bullshit? Do you want it? How do you guys feel about Trump having a third term? A lot of these questions, because I know how the left feels about some of these things. So this episode is a lot of questions to the right about how you feel about Trump's moves at this moment. But he's serious about a third term. Last, we said Trump made some comments on Putin. He said he's very angry at Putin. He's going back and forth. A couple weeks ago, a month ago, he was in the Oval Office basically bashing President Zelensky, telling him, you're not going to tell us what America's going to feel. You basically need to bow down. Now he's saying he's mad at, angry, and pissed off at Putin during an interview because he's mad because Trump says he's very angry and pissed off when Russian President Vladimir Putin criticized the credibility of Ukrainian president. So basically Trump is saying, you can't talk about Ukraine, only I can. Watch what you're doing. So that's very interesting as well. So we're going to look into that this weekend. They said in this interview, Trump said they're not Ukraine, but Putin and Russia and Trump are going to talk again this week because he wants a ceasefire. And Trump basically said if Russia doesn't give a ceasefire and it's their fault, there will basically be hell to pay. I think it's in the headline. Trump said in an early morning phone call that if he believes Russia is at fault for a ceasefire not being reached with Ukraine, he may impose secondary tariffs on Russian oil, which is already going on. Trump already did that. So it's like one of those things where it's a big question of, if you read the headlines, you would think Trump is in control. But if you read more into this, you can't help but feeling like, is Putin kind of controlling Trump and kind of just letting Trump feels like he has power, but doing stuff in the background. Because there's a lot of talk on like, there's a ceasefire going on right now that Trump did in Ukraine and Russia. That is like, Ukraine and Russia both said that they're not going to bomb energy infrastructure and the Black Sea. Like, they're not going to fuck with those two things. But then the same day it happened, Russia was bombing energy infrastructure, and Trump was pretty much like, we got to look into it. Like, it's interesting. The dynamic between Trump and Russia and Trump and Putin and America and Russia is so interesting to me. And I am so interested in what people on both sides think. Is Trump in full control? Is Trump working with Russia too much? What do you think about that? Because it's interesting to me, and that's going to be something that I'll get into more. And then the last thing is, Trump didn't talk about this during the two interviews, but there will be talks about immigration and his policies this week. I'm going to give an update on the story of Muhammad Khalil, which is the Columbia student, the Columbia grad student that got arrested. I've talked about this on the show. Go watch that video. There was another student, I think that went to Columbia, that was arrested, and these are all immigrants, but they all have their different stories on whether or not they should have been immigrated in, or if they should be detained in the first place while they're being detained. That's a very interesting story of how Trump is deporting people and how he's choosing to do it and how he's going against courts. There will definitely be updates on that. So we're going to look into all of that. But yeah, this week we're going to hear about immigration. This week we're going to hear about Ukraine and Russia and Trump talking to them and the ceasefire, and if he's going to end that war that he said he would end on the first day when we're getting on his 100th day. We're going to see if we're going to hear any more about signalgate, or if that's going to just go through the wayside. We're going to hear more about the third term, the Greenland. Like, there's going to be a lot that happens this week. This is what you should be looking out for, and Guarantee News is going to cover it. And again, if you were watching, I definitely appreciate it. And that's a wrap for this episode. We're going to be having episodes throughout the week. So definitely subscribe. Definitely turn the post notifications on. And please have a great rest of your day. Be safe. Be happy. Or at least try to be peaceful. That's a wrap for this episode.